Hey guys, how's it going? Danconia, welcome back to Overwatch. And remember when Overwatch used to be a very simple beast? And what I mean by that is you played your role, right? So you go back to 2017, you'd have a healer who mainly healed, right? Let's be honest, a support that mainly healed, a tank who would tank damage, a DPS that would be outputting the damage. Mainly that is what you saw. And that was fine, and the game was very simple back then compared to what it is now. Then Blizzard tried to spice things up a bit, right? And with new heroes introduced, we got the idea of hybrid heroes. And what do I mean by a hybrid hero? Well, a hybrid hero is a hero in one category, so support, DPS or tank, that can do aspects of another category. So we got a few instances of these heroes. One has kind of turned into this hero over a long period of changes. Two were built as hybrid heroes. So the thing is, these heroes can cause a lot of problems. Meta-wise, game balance-wise, they've caused a lot of problems and are still causing problems, some of them. So let's have a talk about these hybrid heroes and where they cause their problems too. The first one we're going to look at is possibly the most OP hero in the game right now. It's Baptiste. So Baptiste was introduced not that long ago, just this year, and he's this crazy character, and I don't think anyone can deny that this hero is fun to play. He's always been fun to play. He kind of wormed his way into the meta, because he did get a buff to his spread, I think the spread of his fire, which has made him pretty darn good. So Baptiste is an example of a DPS support hybrid. Now, we kind of already had a DPS support hybrid. He's called Zen. He's called JNATHYN. But the thing is with Zen, is that his healing output is not brilliant. Let's be honest. You can't run Zen as a main healer because he just doesn't do enough heals. He never has done. The thing with Zen is his ultimate is crazy powerful, right? It's fight turning. Zen's ultimate, or at least it used to be. Anyway, but Zen had this thing where he does a lot of damage. Given the chance when there's no barriers around, he gets a lot of damage done. But that's offset by a kind of a lack of healing output. Then you throw Baptiste in here though. Baptiste does a lot of damage. I don't think anyone can deny that. He rivals Soldier 76, who is a DPS hero. Now, Soldier 76 has his healing aura, but it doesn't do much in terms of healing. Baptiste has high healing output as well, with his biotic launcher. So, Baptiste does a lot of healing, a lot of damage, and then you look at the rest of his kit. He's got this big window ultimate, which amplifies everything that goes through it. I mean, that's crazy. It's a great ultimate, but I don't have a problem with his ultimate. I think his ultimate is in a pretty good place. You have his immortality field, which is more balanced than D.Va's old defense matrix was, but it's still a very powerful ultimate and negates a lot of game-changing ultimates in the game with one click of a cooldown ability. So, your thoughts on that? You have them, because, yeah, it's not always a great feeling, is it? But Baptiste is so strong in the meta right now because he does so much. He is like a third DPS at times, but he also has that incredible healing output when it's needed. So this is the problem. When you get hybrid heroes like this, they can become very powerful. Very powerful. And I don't think we can deny that Baptiste is very powerful right now, and I think he is the most obvious hero for a next nerf in terms of the next batch of nerfs that will be coming sometime early next year, I'm sure. So we've had an instance of this before though. When we look back towards GOATs, Brigitte. Now Brigitte was a slightly different beast. I think we can all agree. Brigitte was a tank support hybrid. And I think we can all agree that a support really shouldn't be frontlining on a team. And that's what Brigitte could do originally. I think we all remember that one. Brigitte's healing output when in brawls, and remember it's when in brawls, this is why GOATs was so powerful, Brigitte's healing output was fantastic, especially when you're all bunched up. Again, that's why Goats was very powerful. So, she could also tank, and she could really, really tank in the early days. It was crazy. And then she had this CC with her shield, which originally could go through Reinhardt's barrier, which, yeah, I'm not quite sure how that made it off of PTR, but it did. But Brigitte was incredibly powerful because of her tanking ability. Now, I always saw Brigitte when she was released as a support version of Reinhardt. With her 600 HP barrier, I think it was. She was so tanky and so hard to kill at times, and it killed other heroes. She was so powerful, it literally caused other heroes to just completely be killed off in the meta. And I'm talking obviously about Genji and Tracer, mainly. They just died, and they've never really recovered. They've never really recovered since. And we are seeing a bit more Genji at the moment because the meta's all over the place with the new shield, the barrier nerfs. But these heroes have caused shockwaves in the meta because of their hybrid ability. And the question is it a great way for Blizzard to be pumping, say, fun into the game with new heroes if they're so damn powerful on release because they do so much? Is it a great look? Should it be happening? Should we get hybrid heroes? Or should we go back to a more basic style of Overwatch where we've released a support, this support heals your team very well, but don't be doing too much damage because that's not what this hero is built for. And when you look at that, Moira can also be brought into this as well. Because I'm sure you've all had those teams, whether you're playing the Moira or whether someone else is playing the Moira and you think this, where they're just damaging all the time and they're not healing. And this is the complicated thing about Moira as well. Doing damage for Moira is an integral part of her kit, because otherwise she cannot heal if she doesn't damage, because she has to recharge her healing meter. So then you get into a trouble of, well, this is another DPS support hybrid. And now you're starting to look at it. Look at the recent supports that have been released. Brigitte, Moira, Baptiste. They've been hybrid supports. Now, I think this was a move by Blizzard to pull people into the support category. Because obviously, I think we all realise now, especially with the introduction of role queue, that there is an abundance of DPS players around. And yeah, I think Blizzard have wanted to balance this out slightly. And it's kind of worked and kind of not worked. We still have an overabundance of DPS players, but I think it's just the way gamers and the world works. I think that people are always going to want to be the ones to do the damage, to get the kills. And that's just the way it works. But, and we've seen it in the tank category as well in recent times. When you look at Orisa, she does actually a pretty darn good amount of damage if you got the aim. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, Sigma. Sigma does a lot of damage. Sigma does a lot of damage for a tank. And remember, it's a tank. And they also designed Sigma as a main tank, which, yeah, it didn't go down very well in the community because he ended up as an off tank, and he still is an off tank in my opinion. But Sigma does a lot of damage. Orisa does a lot of damage. Again, heroes that are a bit more on the hybrid side compared to your normal tanks. And when I talk about your normal kind of like tanks specialized in the role of tank, I'm talking about Reinhardt, I'm talking about Winston, I'm talking about D.Va originally, but D.Va is a bit more she's a bit more assassin-like now. She can, with her micro missiles, assassinate things like a Zenyatta pretty quickly. So she's a bit more debatable than what she used to be. But when you look at the damage output of things like Orisa and Sigma, again, new heroes to the game, they weren't original releases, they are different. They are different. And then you bring up something like a Roadhog. Well, Roadhog, the thing is, this is about give and take. And I said this with Zenyatta earlier. Roadhog does a lot of damage in the right situation, but he is also very, very vulnerable to being not only an ult battery, he has no shield, and very little protection. All he can do is heal himself, hook people, and shoot, basically. So Roadhog is very vulnerable in other aspects to offset that good damage output. But other heroes that we've talked about already, like Baptiste, haven't got that offset. Baptiste is just good at doing damage and good at doing healing. And he's just good, and that makes him great. So then we look at Blizzard trying to solve this problem. Now, when we lost Goats, Brigitte had already had a wealth of nerfs. She had to have a little mini rework, because then she was trash, and she has been ever since. When you take the survivability away from Brigitte, now remember her shield nerf from 600 to 200, the meta changed with the introduction of roll lock, and all of a sudden, Brigitte is not only not being played in 3 support comps, which she was very powerful in anyway because of her slight lack of healing output, and then she's also not able to front line anymore. And if you take the ability of Brigitte to not front line away from her, that means she can't brawl. And when she brawls, obviously when she's using her mace with her normal attack, right? She is healing at the same time with her passive. If she can't brawl, she can't do that. So in essence, she's useless. She is absolutely useless. And this is why we don't see Brigitte now. Because she's very good at protecting your other support. If you're, say, Zen, you wouldn't be playing Zen Brigitte though, but say your Mercy was being dived by a Genji. If you had a Brigitte alongside that Mercy, and that Brigitte had very good game sense, she can shut down that Genji and stop her from killing your Mercy. So that's a very powerful ability in itself. But the thing is, you're sacrificing a heck of a lot of heals just for the ability to keep your Mercy alive. When other heroes in the game are perhaps a better option. Like Moira, like Baptiste, like even a Lucio in some respects, because they just do a better job and a better all-round job. So this comes then back to Baptiste. And we've talked about nerfs for Baptiste. You've got to be careful, because in my opinion, you only nerf Baptiste's damage output, whether that is reverting the spread change, or whether that's just a straight nerf to the damage numbers. Because if you go too harsh with Baptiste, you nerf his healing and you nerf his damage, and then you nerf perhaps the HP of his immortality field, he'll become trash tier. He'll become a trash tier hero like Brigitte. The hybrid heroes are sometimes causing this significant problem for the devs when they launch them. Brigitte caused this problem. She defined an entire meta around her ability to front line and her ability to brawl and her ability to survive. Baptiste is now very, very heavily in the meta because of his ability to basically play multiple roles. He may say that he's a support, and he is, but he's also a DPS. He wouldn't look out of place in the DPS category, would he? If you were to just nerf some of his healing output and take away his regenerative burst, you could put him in the DPS category, and he would not look out of place, because he does more damage than Soldier 76. And I don't believe any support that has the healing output that Baptiste does should be able to do more damage than any of the DPS heroes. That shouldn't be a thing that exists. Because Overwatch comes down to a game of roles. Support, DPS, and tanks. If you queue for that role, I don't want to see my Baptiste constantly doing damage when he doesn't need to. But the thing is, Baptiste is so effective at doing it, if you can balance the two things, Baptiste becomes godlike. And this is the problem with hybrid heroes. So, this was a talk about hybrid heroes. I've wanted to do it for a while. Hybrid heroes in history for Overwatch have been very, very powerful. Moira, Brigitte, Baptiste. And then also, the hero I was talking about, which has had changes, is Mei. I kind of regard Mei as a hybrid hero right now. Why? Because her survivability is incredibly good. When you think of Mei, I think of her as a tank DPS hybrid. She's got the wall. And the wall, to me, is just like an opaque barrier. It blocks damage. It's actually got only 100 less health per pillar than Orissa's barrier's got. So it's like another barrier. She's very sustainable, just like tanks. She can tank, and we've all talked about Mei being able to tank. So she's another example of a hero, not that's a new hero, but a hero that's morphed into a hybrid hero. And again, she's very, very powerful right now. So I think there needs to be a reining in of these hybrid heroes in Overwatch, because I think every time we've seen them, pretty much, they've been very powerful. And I think we need to go a bit more back to basics. I'm sure we can find the fun in heroes, and they don't have to be these crazy hybrid heroes of different categories. But I'd love to know your opinions on this, because it's an interesting topic, these hybrid heroes. Very, very interesting. And who knows when we're going to get the next hero, so we'll leave it up to Blizzard to make their minds up on that one. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next video. See you then.